Well, welcome everybody to the Slim Nations 101's podcast. I'm Slim Overton here, and I have a special guest with me tonight, and I hope people come back. We tried to do it the other night and couldn't get the sound, so we had to reschedule, and I'm so glad that he was able to reschedule so soon. He didn't want that long gap because, we were kind of ready for him. Everybody was ready for him. But thank you. We have Virginia State Delegate Cliff Hayes. And welcome, Cliff. Thanks for agreeing to come on, and thanks for being patient the other night while you were in Richmond, getting ready to take care of business there. So thanks a lot for coming back tonight so we could have a conversation.
Glad to be here this evening, bro. Overton. Glad.
Yes, thanks a lot. And I want to tell everybody first, if you're watching on Facebook or on our Facebook pages, please like or make your comments. And if you're watching on YouTube Live, make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to build the channel. And make sure you also comment and share with whoever you want to, your friends and foe. So we're here tonight for you. So let's get started. I wanted Delegate Hayes to come in here, and I might go back and forth between Delegate Hayes and Cliff because I've been knowing Delegate Hayes for a while from afar and up close, and I consider him a friend, and we see each other at different events, and it's always a pleasure to see him. And this is the first time I had a chance to really sit down and talk to him. But anyway, Delegate Hayes went to Oscar Smith High School, and of course went to the Green and Gold Norfolk State, and majored in management computer information systems, which is pretty much his profession now. And he's also a photographer, but we'll talk about that. And he also attended the federal, is that C10 Institute at Carnegie?
CIO Institute, Chief Information Officer Institute.
Oh, okay.
CIO Institute.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clearing that up. And his resume is very impressive. So a lot of these things, instead of reading them down, they'll probably come up during our conversation. But I wanted to, and Cliff had gone to, and I wanted to say this, a lot of people think that the delegates and the senators, the state senators, only serve you as far as in a professional environment when they have their General Assembly session. But I've been saying this for a while, they pretty much work all year round. And you see them in the communities, but they are back and forth pretty much all year round, going back to Richmond for special sessions and planned sessions after general session. So I often wonder how they do it all. It's supposed to be a part-time job, but it's almost like a full-time job, and anything else they do is part-time. But, they have a family, they have time to themselves. And I always say, when you see your delegate or see your representative out, don't be afraid to approach him and ask him questions. They are open to that. But if you see them in a private time with their family, kind of hold back on that. Those times are precious to them. And every once in a while, they need time to themselves. So if you can recognize that kind of situation, sort of hold back. But in other situations, make sure this is what they look for. I believe they look for comments from you or whatever suggestions from you. And a lot of time it helps them when they try to decide on something. It's what the people want, and that's what it's all about. So, but anyway, Cliff, we'll get into this year's session, but I wanted people to know, how did you get interested in politics? And we were talking the other day, and I'll let you talk about it. I just wanted to say one thing. You mentioned something about being in your home, and I can remember being in my home. My dad was an attorney here in the city of Portsmouth, and he became a substitute judge, and he was involved. But when he became a substitute judge, he couldn't get involved. And this kind of pulled me into it because I'm a junior, so we had the same name. So when he wanted to support a candidate, he would use my name. It put that junior on there. And before I was really involved and people knew who I was, people knew that was him. I can say this now because that was years ago, but they knew it was him throwing their support behind that particular candidate. And that's kind of how I sort of transition myself into it, because I said, okay, well, he's using my name. Let me see what this is all about. And then I got involved, and then people knew later on it was me that was throwing that support out there. But I thought that was a funny story. So Cliff, Delegate Hayes, talk about how you got involved. I mean, some people get involved by happenstance. They just happen, people come up to them and say, hey, you need to run for office. What about you?
Yeah. So, Brother Slim, it's always been an expectation in the Hayes household that we would always be connected to
Behind that
our
particular.
community, to make sure that also that we were engaged and always paying attention. And my father used to say to us when we were young, kids growing up, my brother and I, if you see a thing, if you see a situation that you think needs to be changed, what is it about that thing that needs to be different, that needs to happen, that needs to change? Then why don't you be that thing? Why don't you be that situation, be that person to make that change? Oftentimes you hear the phrase, somebody ought to do something about that.
Yeah.
My dad would say, well, you are that somebody. Be that somebody to do what needs to be done from your perspective. If you don't agree, it's not enough for you to sit on the sidelines and poke your lips out and gossip with the onlookers. Um, if you see something that needs to be done, then you need to get in and push, put a shoulder to the wheel and push. And so I've always had that instilled in me. And quite honestly, when I was leaving college, I had finished my time playing baseball at Norfolk State. One of the things that I recall my post high school years of playing ball and getting invited to camps and playing on a collegiate level, I learned so much about the game that I thought I already knew,
Mhm.
but I knew it was a lot growing up in, say, the recreation leagues and so forth, those passionate coaches that would help us out. Um, I learned technique and fundamentals beyond high school that I wanted to give back and share with the kids who also love the game, to show them what and share with them some of the things that I had learned. And so when I finished at Norfolk State, I went back to the community in which I was raised, born and raised in South Norfolk, and decided to get involved and coach. And I was a coach there in the community, ultimately becoming the league director there at Cascade Park. And one of the opening days, the mayor, who happened to have been my African American history professor at Norfolk State, he was the mayor of the city of Chesapeake, the late great Dr. William E. Ward. Um, Dr. Ward came out to throw out the first pitch on opening day, and he saw me out at the ball field coaching. He said, "Man, what's going on here? I thought you had moved away. I didn't realize you were still here." And he said, "You need to come out with this group of men, Chesapeake Men for Progress, and sit around sometimes with some of us guys, and you could share some new ideas with this group, and they can impart some knowledge with you in regards to the city of Chesapeake and its leadership, its ideas for growth, etc." And I went out to that first meeting that second Saturday with Chesapeake Men for Progress, and was forever changed in terms of my curiosity in regards to civics and getting involved in that way. Yes, I loved pouring into the kids and teaching them about the game, but there's some things about sports that I had always been involved in that apply to life. You can parallel those same lessons learned in sports to life. And so, in terms of strategy, teamwork, etc., I learned from these men with Chesapeake Men for Progress what that was all about. And in that group, um, and also um, there was a time as Mayor Ward was retiring, planning to step down from being the mayor and not run for reelection, that this same group of men, along with some other leaders in the city, um, that encouraged me to run. And I asked for their advice, and those gentlemen um, got behind me. And lo and behold, in an at-large city like Chesapeake, I was able to be successful in my first run for office. When I got elected, I actually was the highest vote getter twice as I served on Chesapeake City Council. So it was broad support that I had across the city, everywhere from Mayor Ward at the time, Dr. Hugo Owens, March Cromwell, who was the president of the NAACP in Chesapeake, as well as a bunch of other wise men, department heads in the city, members of boards and commissions in the city, uh, deputy superintendent of schools for the city, just some very wise men. And then I had the support of others who were some of Chesapeake's first citizens. I told you about Dr. Ward and
Mhm.
Dr. Owens. They were two of Chesapeake's first citizens. But I also had the support of another first citizen in Faye Mitchell. She was the clerk of the circuit court in the city of Chesapeake. So I was happy to have her support. I had the support also of Ray Connor, who was the commissioner of revenue, and the support of Sheriff John Newhart. John Newhart. So
Uh,
I
I,
had,
I have to step in and say this because listening to all the support you had, and any candidate would, would want that kind of support, especially from those legends, some of the legends you mentioned in politics. And you recall how it used to be. They used to always say, in order to get in politics and be successful before you run for office, you have to pay your dues. You have to do those boards and commissions, or head of the NAACP, or head of different organizations to get your name known out there. But what you're talking about is also a good approach, is having that kind of leadership behind you, because people respect those people that respected you enough to run you. So that was, can you say that was your advantage there, or did you get a chance to serve on, in some of those groups that I mentioned
oh,
before?
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Um,
so that's all a part of it.
yeah, I was actually the Area 2 chairperson for the
Okay,
NAACP at a time when the Portsmouth uh, uh, chair of the Portsmouth branch of the NAACP president was Dr. Elizabeth Daniels,
yeah.
uh, who's passed away now.
Mhm.
Um, but also, I'm the former chair for the Urban League of Hampton Roads as well. So, being involved civically, you
So
know,
you did pay those dues.
we always, and I see sometimes people look to get involved in the communities and so forth so that they can pad their resumes. But there's something about a different situation when you don't um, start out trying to have a position and run for office. And so you're just checking the boxes that belong to certain organizations as opposed to getting involved with those organizations and organically uh, deciding to run for office as opposed to checking boxes off trying to get your resume right. I
Right.
think,
It doesn't necessarily make you a good candidate
yeah,
just because
can
you
see
were.
people can see right through that stuff.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah. I just had to bring that up, but that what you did and coupled with all those endorsements that you had, and it made for a great first run for you, right?
Oh yeah, and after serving on and a little bit of time while serving, I also worked for many elected officials also. So I spent some time working for, and back in 1992 to 94, 5, 90 to 94, no, 92 to 96, 92 to 96. I worked in the Commissioner of Revenue's office in the city of Chesapeake
Mm.
prior to working for the data processing department for the whole city. And then in subsequent years, I ended up working 15 years managing technology for the sheriff's office in the city of Chesapeake, there in a liaison to public safety technology overall for the city for 15 years. I also spent some time working for part time as a legislative aide to Delegate Algie Howe in Norfolk, and also worked for as a technology advisor and aide for Senator Yvonne B. Miller, the late Senator Yvonne Miller.
Mm.
So I've had my share of working in the environment of elected officials and kind of getting an understanding of what's expected and how those processes work. And while at the same time, being an administrator in the public government space, and at the same time being an elected official. Because when
Yeah.
I was working for the sheriff's office, that's when I actually ran for office after working for the city on the city side, on the administrative side of things. When I was hired at the sheriff's office, I worked a few years and shared with him that I was working with these men to try to get myself, in a way, ready to run for office, and he agreed, and he actually supported the idea as well. So I've um, worked now probably close to 30 years or more in the municipal regional government arena, if you will, while at the same time, some of that time, um, I was simultaneously working as an elected official.
Wow, a lot of people might be surprised at that because you say you've been 30 years and you don't look like you've been around that long, although many people can realize that you have been around that long. Now, when you being a part of Chesapeake City Council and looking at the city of Chesapeake, how wide it is and how many things are going on in the city of Chesapeake, and you have places. Chesapeake is like you have these little spots in Chesapeake that are sort of isolated, and then you have these. Don't really have a downtown per se, but you got a lot of major areas, and it makes it a hard place to run. Like Virginia Beach, you have to make yourself known in a wide area where some people, kind of isolate, like I said. So that would be enough to keep you occupied, for a long time. And then what was the challenge, or what how were you urged to say, let me take it to another level and run for state delegate? Because you could do the same for your city, but the responsibility widened throughout the state now as a delegate.
Yeah, I would say that interest actually came by way of a domino effect, if you will.
Mm.
Uh, I had decided to, after serving 2 terms on city council, not ran, I enrolled in school at Carnegie Mellon in that CIO Institute in
Okay.
2012. And as I completed that program and came out of that, trying to shore up my technology management skills and education, when I came out of that, because that's where the bread and butter is, that's my
Mhm.
actually livelihood. And what
Yeah,
I
you
love,
can't live off a elected official salary,
so
not and have a family. Yeah.
yeah, so when I came off of that, a little time after that, um, there was this conversation being had about um, then Senator Yvonne B. Miller had passed away, and um, Kenny Alexander ran for her seat and won, and became he
Mhm.
was a delegate, and he ran for senator and won. Um, when the position opened up for the mayor of Norfolk, Kenny Alexander decided to run for that uh, seat, that mayoral position, that office. He ran for it and won. And right after he won that, then Delegate Lionel Sproul decided to run for that Senate seat, and he won that seat. And that opened up an opportunity. And at that time, it was called the 77th House District.
Mhm.
And the core of that district was coming out of an area of South Norfolk, Indian River, Crestwood, etc. And that was home for me. And the time that I spent on city council, I was able to successfully get a lot of initiatives for home, if you will. And
Mhm.
so it was a natural thing for me to be interested in that role. And so I ran and I won that position as a delegate in 2016. And from there, just continue to run for reelection, and here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's the 91st district
Yes,
uh, due to redistricting, and so you have parts of Chesapeake and parts of Portsmouth, and that was no problem because Portsmouth and Chesapeake are so close, and most of all the people and politicians come together for many different things. So
yes,
that was no that
yes,
was that was wasn't a big problem, and
yes,
it gives you even more chance to spread your wings and cover more people as well as the state of Virginia. I
absolutely.
want to ask you, going into this year's session, and it's always a lot going on with all the different packages coming from the different cities. But with the national climate, the way it was after the election, how did that sort of change or alter, the regular business that you all were prepared to go in for, knowing that all these executive orders were coming down and that could affect some of the things that you all do, some of the funds that you all give to the city, and it could affect because most cities depend on the state funds and of course the funds that come from the national arena. So, how did that affect going into the session? You all knowing that these things were happening, and you all wanted to really conduct business as usual, but you also had to be aware of what was going on the national scene.
Yeah, you are correct. So whatever's happened on the federal level with policy, with the budget, etc., then goes to the state in which you're in. And then, of course, that somewhat is going to indirectly or directly affect the local managing body or the city council, as well as the school system and its funding and policies as well. So all of it's interconnected, to be quite honest. You have different
Mhm.
levels of government, local, state, and federal. But the truth is, um, your economy is going to be impacted by those policies that are at each one of those levels. And you just have to find out where you're going to strike that balance. Oftentimes, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it has been proven that um, the the party that ends up winning the president office happens to be the opposite office, executive office at the Commonwealth level here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There have been a few anomalies here or there,
But
but
normally it's the opposite. Yeah, yeah,
look back over history, you will
right.
see that that's what has tended to happen in the Commonwealth.
And strikes a better balance, with what you all do and what the presidential office does. It strikes the
Yeah,
balance. It gives y'all a little bit more leverage.
yeah. So that's what we had. We had Democratic administration and President Biden. And here, what ends up happening is at the last time we had a gubernatorial race, Governor Youngkin actually won the governor's seat. Uh, Mieres won the attorney general, and Winsome Sears won the lieutenant governor. And I guess the craziness and all of that um, is that those policies sometimes uh, contrast with the policies of the power of the General Assembly. As you know, with the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Democrats are the majority party in the House of Delegates, and the Democrats are the majority party in the Senate. So we have a process now that calls for understanding how the place works. And that's not always the case. Folks come in off the street, as this particular governor did, trying to run the Commonwealth as though he was a manager at a hedge fund company.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to just wave your finger at folks and everything is going to happen with a magic wand according to whatever it is that you want to happen. Our Constitution, not only on the federal level, our U.S. Constitution, our state Constitution as well, emphasizes a separation of powers. So you have the executive branch, and you also have a legislative branch and a judicial. And so you don't get to say, as an executive branch, um, what the budget is going to be. You need to figure out how to negotiate with the General Assembly, the legislative body, to figure all of that out. Because according to the U.S. Constitution and state as well, the legislative branch writes the laws. We are the lawmakers. We write the laws. We write the budget. We legislate the budget. The budget itself is a bill. And so that's where that authority comes under the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a lesson I think that this governor had to learn um, uh, after being there. I think he was a little frustrated by his attempts. We all remember the negotiations or the plan that he had for an arena that
Yeah.
he wanted to bring to the Commonwealth. And I'll never forget the image, the picture is etched in my mind of a December time frame with the governor and this owner of the company, Leonis, and they're leaning over at some meeting or something, and they were laughing and laughing. They were, because they had a plan of how they were going to bring Leonis's arena to Northern Virginia, but he hadn't shared the plan with leaders in the General Assembly, and he learned the hard way because I remember another picture subsequent to that one was a picture of President Pro Tem and Chair of Senate Finance talking to Mayor Bowers with the city of Washington, D.C. And Senator Lucas shared that she wasn't a bit interested in bringing that arena to the Commonwealth because the the people in that area did not want it. And so um, that plan got balled up and thrown in the trash, so to speak.
And wouldn't that have cost the taxpayers the way the deal was structured?
Yeah. So there's always being there will always be a reminder to us as appropriators, and I'm blessed to serve on appropriations on the House side, where we appropriate the citizens, the people's resources. There's always going to be an understanding that um, the pie is but so big, it's finite, the amount of money that you have. And so that's what government is. That's what politics is. It's unlimited demands with limited resources. In other words, you're going to be forced to prioritize what to do with these resources. And in this case, the priority was not to give away tax breaks and incentives to bring an arena in when we have so many needs, uh, for instance, when it comes to our public schools,
Right.
uh, the salaries for our teachers and other public servants. So we wanted to make sure, and the needs of the people, healthcare costs is skyrocketing. What can we do to help, lighten the burden on the costs for healthcare in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and to cross over and make sure that we're taking care of the people versus corporations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because this past Saturday, Senator Warner was here in the area. And of course, the week before, you and Senator Lucas and Speaker of the House uh, gave a town hall and gave citizens a chance. And a lot of the questions that people had were, what are you all doing to offset some of the things that President Trump might be doing that might harm the citizens in the state of Virginia? And I think it's great that you're all doing these town halls and going to the people and also letting them know that they are part of this and what we need to do as well. How important their vote is, especially this midterm election coming up. So we as citizens have to participate as well, and you all have what you all can do as legislators, and we have what we can do as citizens. So those town halls are very important in letting people know and answering those questions that people have about what is the Virginia Assembly legislators doing to offset some of the things that might be coming, because he's firing all these things. A lot of it is distraction, you know. So you got to be aware of what's distraction and what he's really trying to slip in there. So
That's right.
um,
Keep your eye on the ball.
keep your eye on the ball.
Don't fall for a high leg kick and hiding the ball and all of
Yeah.
that, because at the end of the day, the ball has got to come across the plate. So
Right. Right.
just keep your eye on that. Don't fall for all the distractions. I think somebody
Yeah.
said we moderns are distracted from we are our moderns are distracted by distraction from distraction. So
Yeah.
there's always going to be a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah. And Cliff, some of the stuff is so crazy that you have to talk about it. And while we're talking about it for a week, the real stuff is getting paid. You said, when did that happen? But so often, even on that level, a lot of things is he can't really do, but he's throwing it out there without the consent of the Congress. But
Yeah,
you people that are not paying attention, they think he's really doing these things.
yeah,
And some of the things he can really pick at with some of the things like closing the Department of Education and things like that. I mean, he can't close it, but he can pick at it to the point where it's not as strong as it should
yeah.
be.
Try to make it collapse. Yeah,
Right, right, right.
cool.
So, and we had some city council people on our other podcast, for some coffee talk, and we had some school board members. and their concern was, uh, how the national scene is going to affect them, because the people in between that and them is the state legislators, and you all are doing what you all need to be doing. So hopefully, none of that stuff that comes down from him it can affect us to the point where we'll panic, because he throws a lot of that stuff out there, and just to see the reaction of the stock market, it's not hurting his pocket.
Right. And that's probably the main thing that we need to remember is these folks, the billionaires, are living in a bubble. And so much of what they do today, billionaires, the policy isn't affecting them. Their family
Mhm.
members, their children, their grandchildren are in a situation they probably will never have to go to the grocery store, right? They're not going to
Right.
have they're not going to have a problem um, with health care and having health insurance or having coverage. They live in a bubble. And so, um, in this democracy, that being the operative thing to keep your eye on, uh,
Hmm.
this democracy, as my father used to say, he used to pop a 8-track tape in the car on our way.
Eight-track tape. Okay, maybe he have been around for 30 years.
He used to put that thing in, and we go off to vacation, listening to the OJ's.
Hmm.
And I remember that one of those tunes used to be "Got to Give the People
What
What
they
They."
want.
And at the end of the day, living here in this democracy, um, that's where we are. You got to listen to the voices of the people. I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said, if I was in another country, I may not be as vocal, but I live here in America. And the founding father, they put it in writing that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator certain inalienable rights, amongst
Hmm.
them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's all men. That's everybody. And so in this democracy, I'm going to lift my voice. I'm going to raise my voice, as the Johnson brothers would say.
Hmm.
Lift every voice and sing. Uh, my music uh, professor and teacher, all from the fifth grade on up to the 10th grade, reminded us that you can't have harmony singing the same note. If everybody sings the same note, you're not going to get harmony. But if you start to pull together dissonance, and people singing different notes, that's how you get harmony. There
Hmm.
might be some dissonance here and there, but harmony cannot come with one voice, with one note. And that's what parallels uh, the anthem that we hear coming from the Johnson brothers.
Yeah.
Lift every voice. Let's hear every voice. Let's let's allow every voice to sing, to speak up, and let's live out the truth.
Yeah.
And a condition of the truth is to allow suffering to speak. So none of this one voice trying to snuff out the voices of those people who are the least among us,
Yeah.
the least of these. Let's hear what they have to say also in this democracy.
Yeah. Indeed. And that actually should be the national anthem, if you ask me. But Delegate Hayes, talk about the committees that you all on, and how important it is, these committees, to be a part of some of these committees, and a lot of it is by, the really big committees about seniority, but A lot of them are just assignments that you get as soon as you come on. And before you talk about the committees you're on, explain the process of being on those committees. I believe the Speaker of the House is involved, so that's another way we can say how important it is to have someone like our Speaker, in his
Yeah,
position that,
absolutely.
that he's going to look out for his community, but he's going to look out for the whole state. Which if people were concerned about, well, he's just going to look out for black folks. No, if you look at the history of the way we govern, we look out for everybody. There's nothing wrong with looking out for your community, but you can also look out for the whole state. Sometimes in other situations, people just look out for themselves and forget about anybody else. So I just wanted to say that for people that might think, having someone in that position is an unfair advantage for one race or another. Is something for us to be proud of, and it's things that got overlooked will be looked at. But as far as the whole state will be taken care of.
Absolutely. Let me just share with you an experience that I had, and I think it was around 2017, I think 2018. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was 2018 is when I met Don Scott. And I had attended a um, birthday celebration for then Congressman Bobby Scott over in Newport News.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Warwick High School we were at. And as I was coming out of that celebration, a friend of mine, Mark Askew, introduced me to Don Scott. And Don came up to me and he said, "Man, we appreciate everything that's going on that you all are doing in the General Assembly. But with the Black Caucus, what kind of initiatives, what kind of strategy, what kind of plan does the Black Caucus have? What kind of laws have you all been able to push to help people, to help everybody in Virginia?" And I looked at him and we started having this conversation. I started sharing with him some of the great things that we were able to get accomplished. And I said, well, the truth is, we help by putting a shoulder to the wheel and helping out and getting involved. And I asked him the question, how involved are you with your delegate? Who's your delegate? And are you involved in trying to share your ideas with your delegate? And of course, being the smart, articulate gentleman that he is, he went on to share some ideas that he had also poured into his representative, his delegate. And I said to him, maybe in the future, you might want to consider running for office yourself, as sharp as you are. And he responded by saying, nah, if I were there with you all, I would have to be in charge. And I say, in charge, man, you got to first get elected. And then the electeds, we decide who's going to be in charge. And um, if, as fate would have it, he ended up running for a delegate position. I think it was like a year or two later, he was running for the House of Delegates. Once he got elected, he came to me and we talked a little bit. I started sharing ideas of what I thought he might need to do there. And he was always real inquisitive and moving from person to person there, more senior people trying to learn, always. And he reads everything. I don't mean every document. I mean every line of every document.
Is that the lawyer in him?
Yeah, yeah. And decided that he wanted to run for minority leader. We had been in control in the past, and then we lost that control in a subsequent election, and so we were in the minority. And he decided, getting back to that thing that we talked about, if you see something that you don't like and you want to see change, then why don't you be that change?
See that change. Yeah.
And he was that change. Don Scott called me one day, and he was telling me how he was interested in running for a minority leader. And I watched him work diligently, our caucus members from all around the state, and was able to convince folks that he was a leader. And that election came up, and he ran and he won. And he became our minority leader, which put him in a position to strategize for how we would go from being a minority in the House to becoming the majority. So his job was to strategize the next election that we had for how we might get back into the majority. And sure enough, under his leadership, we took back over, came the majority party in the House, and we were more than happy to vote for him as the Speaker of the House. Getting back to your original question
Mm-hmm.
for how we end up being um, members of our committees, it is the Speaker of the House that appoints the individuals to various committees. It is the Speaker of the House who will decide the chairmanship of those committees as
So
well.
it's not a committee upon that. It's the speaker himself actually looking over all that and say, okay, I want you to be. Some people thought it was a committee of people that appoints
Oh, it's a
the
committee.
son.
Oh, it's a committee, all right. It's a committee.
Okay.
It's a committee of one.
Okay.
It's the Speaker of the House
Speaker of
will
the House.
will decide what committees folks are on. You can ask,
Yeah.
you know, but it's the decision of the Speaker. And fortunately, I was in. Um, I had some good committees since the time that I've been in the General Assembly, and the times in which we were um, in the majority since I've been there. Um, I was appointed to certain committees and made chair over certain committees.
Okay.
And
When you say good committees, you mean committees that the actions they take, you know, kind of directly affect, your constituents or the citizens of Virginia
so,
really quickly. It's something that the actions take, they affect you right away, because I don't think it's any, I'd say, you wouldn't say it's any bad committees, but
oh,
there are
no,
some committees that probably have a little bit more priority than others as far as really affecting people right away.
right. For instance, if you want to talk about where your priorities are, show me your wallet, show me your spending. And
Yeah.
so, one of the priority committees is the appropriations.
Yeah.
And since I've been there, I've had the good fortune of being and serving on appropriations. And while on appropriations, I was appointed to be a subcommittee chair of general government and capital outlay.
Right.
So most of the things dealing with the government and the budget for operations as well as capital, those large construction projects around the Commonwealth, those items come through my committee that I'm on. And so I'm proud to serve in that way. And I'm certainly appreciative that this speaker in the past, speaker when the Democrats were in control, saw, you know, fit to place me in that role. And so I'm happy to serve on appropriations since I've been there and to be a subcommittee chair on appropriations. I also um, find it a blessing also to work with and serve and chair the Communications Technology and Innovation Committee that deals with bills, any bills that have anything to do with technology come before the committee in which I chair while we're in session. So those bills that are going to impact technology come before my committee. Now, outside of that, when we're out of session, there are study commissions that will make recommendations for how the code should be changed regarding issues. And so the Technology Commission, the Joint Commission on Technology and Science, I happen to be the chairperson of that as well. And then, of course, I serve on a committee, the Health, Welfare, and Institution Committee, that deals with bills around the matter of health and health care type matters. And then, with regards to studying healthcare, I serve on a joint commission on health in the General Assembly. Then, of course, there's the Rules Committee, which is a committee chaired by the Speaker of the House. I'm blessed and fortunate to serve on rules as well. And so we have our work cut out for us every time we start up another session and in January and work through that process and the odd number of years for 45 days. Even number of years, we're dealing with the biennial budget, a budget that's over 2 years. And so we will be there a little longer. It'll be 60 days instead of 45 days to allow for more time to get the budget right, another 15 days of dealing with that. And so I'm extremely blessed to be in that situation, but I also recognize that that's a decision of the Speaker of the House, and I appreciate his leadership for one, and then his confidence in me also while I'm there.
The delegates, as we wind down, we're coming to an hour, and we're going to have you back because I'm dedicated here on the Slim Nation 101's podcast, as well as Portsmouth Coffee Talk podcast, to continue to have civic engagement conversations for people leading up to the midterm elections and going forward. Because as you talk to people, it's allowing sometimes how people and I'm not calling anybody ignorant, but ignorant to the fact of how politics works. And it's so much that they listen to that has nothing to do with the real workings of politics and how you get things done. So we want to be committed to let people know how things, and you've done that well tonight. And I want to ask you one other thing. You at the point where the bills are in and the governor gets the opportunity to look at them and sign off on them or veto them. So if he vetoes some bills that you all collectively thought that, wow, that was really a good bill that really could have helped us, going forward today. I hate to have to wait for next year. Is anything that you all can do collectively to override his vetoes?
Yeah, it actually takes 2/3 of the members of the General Assembly to override his veto in each house, each chamber. And so in the House, we have 100 members. Whatever that number of people that are present, it takes 2/3 of them voting that can override a governor's veto. And we did have a few situations yesterday where we overrode the governor's veto. And then the same is true in the Senate. They can override the veto by 2/3 as well.
Okay, does that only happen if you have the majority there? Because you have to get somebody from the other side of the aisle to make up that 2/3, right?
Because of the numbers, the way that we have, like for
Yeah.
instance, the House, we have 100 members, and there are 51 of us, Democrats. So we have to try to get that number to 66, 67 or so votes. So obviously, it's going to take some convincing on the other side of the aisle to get some of those folks to vote along with us as well. And sometimes things are just that egregious uh, when a governor vetoes something that we're able to say to the other side, come on now. I mean, this is just common sense. And then they override the veto.
Yeah, it's not always like the national scene where everybody's lockstep. Well, you see a few about four senators today going against the president, but leading up to this has all been lockstep. All of them going together. So
But again,
at least we can be feel comfortable on the state scene
oh yeah.
that you have some people that do common sense legislation.
Well, the truth is, we're there for the people, to be the voices of the people, to represent the people. And so, if the people raise their voices and raise their concerns and let their elected officials know what their positions are, then those elected officials will begin to see, get, feel that heat coming from an electorate that is displeased. Then you will see those elected officials begin to shift and change and to pull away from being lockstep, if you will. You
Right.
can start out with a crazy plan all you want, but when those people start rising up and they're collective, they're collected, and they're working together on what's best for their communities. Um, when you start talking about the human side of things, and you start messing with people's social security, you start messing with Medicaid. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, now you start messing with CHIP, the funding for children, uh, healthy children, and taking care of our children. You're gonna start seeing the people rising up and have a problem with some of the things that you have going on. You're going to have a problem in a democracy when you try to ignore other branches of the government when there's supposed to be a system of checks and balances, and the judicial branch rules a certain way in the courts, and then you want to snub your nose up at whatever the judges have said, or you want to be an activist and send people after judges. That's not what a democracy is supposed to be all about. Our
Indeed.
democracy is a system of checks and balances, and we're supposed to respect that, honor that, and realize it's the greatest experiment in the world um, to have such a situation where there's checks and balances. If we can hold people to what we've written and said on paper, that's the key.
Well, look, I really thank you for, as I mentioned in the beginning, thank you for being patient. We tried to do it, and we're doing it now, so that's the most important thing. And like I said, we look forward to having you back either on this platform or the Portsmouth Coffee Talk as we go forward. And at this time, if you have any last words you'd like to give us, especially with the midterms coming up, and I know that you all will continue to do your town halls collectively or individually. You'll be going out and talking to your constituents. And so at this time, if you'd like to have some last comments, well, it could be on anything you want. I was just with the midterms coming up, and it's important to people to realize, and we can't vote like we've been voting. We have to get out there and exercise the right that was given to us years ago that a lot of people sacrificed for.
Yeah, the truth is, we all have a responsibility to cast our votes. In my drawer, I keep. Oh, okay. I think we
No,
may have.
you still there. You're still
Oh,
there. I'm just
I,
focusing on you right now.
I said I keep a copy of um, my grandmother's receipt for when she has paid her poll tax. That lets
Wow.
us that lets us know how recent it was in the city of Chesapeake when Margie Hayes Bowes paid for her um, poll tax. And I keep that with me as a reminder of just how precious it is and how recent it was that there were these obstacles in our way. Fast forward to a time in 2008 in which we were able to get our first African American elected to the position of President of the United States, Barack Obama. That came with much participation, much commitment, much loyalty, much dedication, because on that day, I will never forget the Civic League president at the age of 95 years old, Mr. James O'Neill, Reverend O'Neill, called me saying, "Hey, man, whatever you need to do, I got my truck ready." At 95 years old, he was shuttling people back and forth to the polls, making sure they got to the polls to vote on that day, only to later in that day get a call from him because he had a house fire. And I'll never forget his voice on that phone that day to tell me he's going to have to take a break. He was that committed as his house was on fire that he was going to call me and tell me that he was going to take a break from shuttling people to the polls to go see what was going on with his home. Got home, his bedridden wife drug her, he's 95 years old, drug her out of the house to safety. This is right here in Chesapeake. I'm not talking about something I read in a book somewhere. This is what I experienced and saw with my own eyes. When I got there to his house, he was sitting there with his wife with a blanket around her in his truck, and he had drug her out of the house to safety. They called the family. The family got him around, and they gathered her, got her to one of the other homes after they had her checked out, family member's home. Do you know Reverend McNeil went right back to shuttling people back and forth to the polls? That was a different generation. That generation are dedicated, completely dedicated to making sure that they get out and vote. Nothing will stop them from getting to the polls and vote. And I can tell you, when you look at the numbers, the statistics after elections, it's seniors, you can count on them getting to the polls and voting. A lot of these other generations do a lot of talking and make a lot of noise on social media, but you can count on, as Don Cornelius used to say, you can bet your money it's going to be a stone as honey. You can bet on, you can count on the fact that those seniors are going to go to the polls and vote. And so we're just asking for everybody to understand what our people have gone through for the right to vote, the right to raise our voices when we see that people are being harmed, policies are being written that are adversely affecting us. Listen, these people do not run for office to give away certificates and keys to the city. They run for policy and for budgeting to try to get themselves set up for a good situation. Someone said that it was Bannon who shared what that overall plan is and what we see today on the federal level. That this whole thing is about 4,000 jobs, 4,000 federal jobs that are also controlling another 10 million jobs. And those 10 million jobs are tied to $5.5 trillion in the budget. And then on top of that, those $5.5 trillion are tied to $75 trillion in assets. So that's the game plan that they're running. And that's exactly what you see them doing everything they can while they create smoke and mirrors and all kind of distractions. We got to keep our eye on the ball to know exactly what their mission happens to be.
Yes, indeed, and thank you. Yeah, and the same thing is happening to us. I guess people would say, like the good Reverend, he personally experienced some of the injustices that he got and why he worked so hard, and that might be part of it. But these people were dedicated, and the same thing is happening to us now. It's just not out in the open. It's a little covert,
Yeah.
and if you open your eyes and stay woke, I'll use that word. It's a bad word to them, but stay woke and you can see it. You
You
can see.
you just hit a
You
nerve
pay attention.
that says stay woke because Dr. Owens told me and wrote on a napkin. He said, I want you to remember this and I want you to promise that you're going to share it with young people. That one man awake
Mm.
can awaken another. The second can awaken his next door brother. The three of them awake can make such a fuss that finally it awakens the rest of us. One man awake with dawn in his eyes multiplies. So if he could
Wow.
think that it was important enough to be awake,
Yeah.
and that was then obviously it's a lesson for us all to pay close attention to. Why wouldn't we want people to be awake? We just want people to just follow ignorance, or do we want an informed electorate?
I
That's the
mean, that's what I would want. I would want everybody around. It would make it easier on me if everybody was informed and knew what was going on.
if
It's easier to fight for them. Yeah.
if you're telling the truth.
If you're telling the truth, and that's a big part of the whole situation. We've become used to lies, and it's like second nature now. It can come out your mouth. You used to could tell when someone, well, you can tell when they're lying. You could tell somebody would give away, but the lies come out their mouth like like the truth would. So. That's something that we just have to be aware of. But thanks again. I really appreciate you coming on. And again, until we meet again, take care and keep up the good work. And I want to thank everybody for watching. And remember, if you watch on the YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe. We want to build this channel on the Slim Nation 101's podcast. And stay tuned for many more guests that I'm planning on having on here, talking about a variety of subjects. But we're going to always try to keep you informed. And remember, my motto is be aware, be informed, and most of all, be involved. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you.
All right.
It's time for us to sit down at the table and turn this chaos into something stable. For love, one on one, we will not accept defeat, not on our land, not in our streets. Getting it done, reaching out to save the youth, letting them know the truth. Slim Nation is where good conversations dwell.